Guys, this is the primer coat after it's dried, about 24 hours. I wanted to make sure that all the volatiles in the paint had completely whiffed off of it, because when you smell paint you can tell if it still has aromatic hydrocarbons whiffing off of it, and that will sometimes affect how subsequent coats lay down. The purpose of this coat here is this is Spaztic's white primer. It's matte. It's like one of the only matte RC paints I can find out there that I know is definitely going to stick to the Lexan. I've tested the Lexan with all the paints that I can obtain around here locally. None of them work that great. Even stuff like bumper coat that should stick to rubbery materials and be flexible, it sticks okay, but it can scratch off pretty easy. I wanted something that would have a really good grab, that would really grab onto this surface and not pop off. Plus, it's best to have a light bottom coat when you're doing camo type patterns, so that when you're applying more and more paint, it makes all the colors really pop and show their true color. And making your own stencils really isn't that hard. What you're looking for is what looks like natural shadows and shapes that you might see in nature. So you want to avoid 90-degree angles, you want to avoid straight lines, and you want to avoid really large shapes. You want a lot of small shapes, depending on the size of your object. So what I have here is, this is what I use for making lines and streaks. Here's kind of like leaf type shapes and shadowy type shapes, and then what I do is I just vary the paints and I vary the location of them. Hey guys, painting a lot of times is about patience and about having the right conditions, and today it's nice and dry. It's going to be in the 70s, so as far as ambient conditions go, it's perfect painting weather. But in my shop, until the sun starts beating on the roof, it's always a little bit cool. So I'm heating up these cans on my radiant heater here. Okay, you don't want to get these things boiling hot, right? But it helps to heat up the fluid inside these cans and get them so they're atomized properly. What the heat does is it lets the paint get into a finer vapor, and it also helps it lay down. Now if it's too hot, the paint will dry in the air before it hits the surface, and that's no good. Okay, so we don't want that. So I'm starting off here with an army green, okay? And it's also important to shake your paint for about a minute, okay? Now I can, just by feeling this can feels cold. This can feels like it's not Heineken cold, so it's probably about 60 degrees. That's just barely the right temperature to be doing what we need to be doing here. So I'm going to let this just cook just a little bit longer on the heat, okay? And we'll take it from there. You can be overstressed how important it is to properly shake up paint, especially flat paints, because they have a flattening agent in them. And if you want the paint to work right, you got to make sure it's mixed up. And they say shake it for a minute. Shake it for a minute. Don't shake it for 15 seconds and go, okay. Okay, a couple other little things people may overlook, okay? There's usually a little black mark on a can. You want to line your spray nozzle up with that. I know that's like a no-brainer, but a lot of people may not even know about that. That's because inside, the little pickup is tilted so that when you're like this, it'll be towards the paint. Okay, the other thing you want to do is you don't want to get too close, you don't want to get too far away. When I'm doing camo patterns, I work from light colors to dark colors. I work from large patterns to small patterns, in general. Not always, but that's usually how it works. And you'll find out that when you're working with things like this, that if you're right up against it like this, you're going to get a very sharp pattern. If you hold it up a little bit, your pattern is going to be more soft-edged, which is what I want. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be holding this up like this and squirting from about 8 inches away to get the result I want. Let's see how that looks. Okay? We'll just do a couple little blobs here and there, and it's nice to wrap things around edges if you can, okay, which helps break up the sharp edges of things, okay. So I'm going to do something like this, okay. I'm going to change shape. Okay. Do another couple more greens here and there. Okay. And it's okay for it to have fuzzy edges. It's okay for it to look blurry because that's going to all get covered with Hydroprint. We're not going for a crisp, you know, specific pattern like woodland camo or anything like that. Okay. So as you can see, I'm holding it about a ½ inch away. If I hold it closer, it's going to make a much sharper pattern. I don't want to put down too much paint at one time because I'm going to be putting a lot of paint on this thing. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time. And I'm changing my patterns around, so I'm using different shapes. Okay. And the idea is truly to try and be as random as possible, because there is no consistent pattern in nature that, you know, is going to be looking like something. Okay. And I don't want to put too much of one color on. Okay. Let me run the camera around so you can kind of see. For the Hydro Dip effect, okay, that's what we're after. Kind of a blurry, fuzzy look. Okay, I don't want to fill the whole thing up yet. I got to leave space. It's kind of like music. You got to leave space, or it isn't music anymore. So we're trying to make music for your eyes. This color, it's called Woodland Light Green. Okay. It's going to be a little different than the Army Green, and that's the whole idea. You want to have different colors. Okay, so we'll get that like about right there. Okay, give it a nice shot there. Okay, I'm going to be putting brown over everything at the end. It's okay if I have some green overlapping. Okay, and even though these greens are very similar, they're going to be just different enough to be interesting. Now a lot of this is window, okay, so you're not going to see all of those patterns. Come around the other side here. Do a little on the front grill. Okay. All these paints are plastic type paints. The paints for painting plastic. They work good on plastic. I don't want too much of this one green color. I think I might put a little bit right on this corner right in here like this. Now part of what this is doing for me, okay, the reason I'm using these big pieces of stencil material with little holes in them is I don't want a bunch of overspray on everything, although it really wouldn't probably hurt to have a little bit of overspray on everything, but I don't really want that. That's not really what I'm after. I think I might want just a little bit more right in there. Okay. Alright, so now that's that green. Now I'm going to get another green. Now, if I was doing a true just all camo pattern, I would have maybe 25 different shapes that I'd want to put on there so that I don't have such a repetitive thing going on. But because it's going to get Hydro Dipped, it's going to hide the repetition a lot better. And this is just another color of green, okay? This was a dark one, see? Deep forest green. It almost looks brown. You see how I'm working from light to dark here. I'll get this to fold up a little bit. So I can get it to there. Okay. And by using different areas of the same stencils, you're going to get different effects. Okay. I know this may not be the most fascinating thing in the world, but I did want to say, because people always ask me, how do you do camo? It's really about trying to trick your eye. You just want to do things that when you're all done, it's going to trick your eye. And it's going to take that boxy shape of this bus, and it's going to make it, it's going to hide a lot of the angles and corners. So a lot of times you want to wrap around corners. Okay? And like I said, you can use the same shapes over and over by using different zones of them and how you decide to make them work. Now remember, there's a lot of windows here, so a lot of times when you'll be seeing a big solid area, that's not going to make any difference. It's also okay to go over top your other colors. You actually want to go over your other colors. You want to have colors on top of colors. And I'm almost ready to start moving to my small patterns now. Almost. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of this white actually showing, because white is another thing that, you know, I mean, I don't want the pure white. I'm going to mist colors all over when I'm done. I'm actually going to fog it, and you'll see what that does too. Okay, let's see. I think I could use another area right in here, like this. Okay, like that. And the windows I'm not too worried about. This corner here, I'd like to get that. Basically, anywhere that I see a corner, I'm going to want to do something with it. So I'm trying to wrap around corners, and I'm trying to make really hard edges disappear. Do something right here. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and use some of my smaller stripes. And this is going to fill in a little bit. And I'm also going to use some of my other colors for this too. And this I can just go like this. Like that. Okay? And it's going to make like little stripes all over. Okay? Okay? I don't want too much of any one thing. And if it looks like I've got too much in one area, what I do is I just go back over it with a different color. One thing about it is you can kind of fix anything that doesn't look right to your eye by adding a little bit different colors. Also, I don't want any particular orientation. I don't want like the Hydrodip itself is going to have an orientation, a vertical orientation. And so I don't want to introduce anything necessarily with these colors. Okay, let's take a look at what we're getting. Okay. Now, if we were going Arctic, we'd leave a lot of that white. But I'm going to fog this in just a little bit. You'll see. A different angle here so you can see. Now, this is the light woodland green. Okay, and this is my smaller shapes with the stripes and whatnot. Okay. Okay. Do something up the bumper. Okay. Where else do I want it? There's a big brown stripe right here I want to do something over. Okay. This is where you get the overlaying starts to occur. Just twist this around so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. This is right in this big brown area right here. Okay. And we got areas back here I want to do. Let me just keep rotating it so you can see what I'm up to. Okay. Kill this corner off here. Okay. And there's a big blob right here. I think I want to do. Spin this around so you can see that. Okay. And we'll put this across this. Okay. Right. The M2D Camo Hydroprint is going to add a lot of colors that are not here, which is nice. So I don't have to worry too much about having a bazillion different colors. Alright, now I'm going to go get my dark brown, and I'm going to do some fogging to take some of that white out. At this point, I feel like I have enough shapes, okay, for what I want. Now what I want to do is I want to knock down some of that white. What you do is you hold the can a little bit further away than you normally would. and you mist over the whole thing. I'm using a woodland brown. I want you to see how far away this can is. I'm almost 2 feet away. Okay, check it out. Knocks down some of that white. You don't want it to be too dark, but the M2D has a lot of little white bits in it. You can see what I'm doing. I'm just laying down dots. That knocks that white down. Okay, it's okay to have a little white here and there. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm not going to make shapes with the brown because I've got enough of that with the dark green that almost looks brown. But what I'm interested in is getting this dot effect. Get the camera a little closer so you can see what I'm saying. You see the misty dot effect? Now I've got some gray that I'm also going to do the same thing with. I want to get a mist of gray. You don't want to overdo it because at this point, if you put too much of your misting over it, it's just going to kill everything. You've got to have light and dark. You've got to have that play of light and shadow for it to look right. And then at the end, I may do some highlights with lighter colors. But the only thing I'm going to look at is I'm just going to go all the way around it, look at it really closely, and see if there's any area that just looks super white, like it's just popping out at me. Okay? I'm pretty happy with that for my base. Okay, now I'm going to go get my gray. I'm going to do the same misting effect. Now you'll notice I have a fan and I have filters and I have an enclosure, and that's to keep everything super clean, keep all the bugs out of it, keep all the dust out of it. But I'm not running my fan at this time. I'll run it to evacuate the room in a minute. I'm almost done with what I want to do. You don't want to hold your paint so far away that by the time the little droplets get there, they're dry. You want to be able to make sure that none of that's rubbing off when you touch it. Okay? Now I'm going to do the same misting with some gray. And it's just going to knock some of those shadows down a little bit. It's going to take some of that white off of it, make it more mellow. I could use something like tan or something like that if I wanted to, but there's a lot of tan in the M2D. Okay, at this point, I've got enough light and dark. I'm pretty happy with it. Might do a little bit of right across the top. I think you can see how that, it just makes everything blurry. It's kind of what you want, at least for the hydro dipping, for what I'm doing. Okay, you may have a different result if you wanted to make like everything with stencils. You probably do it a little different than this. I'm not doing it all over it the same. I want variegation. Okay, so now we've got a nice kind of blend of colors here. At this point, I turn on the fan, get some of these fumes out of here, and help it dry. I'm not worried about this window. What I'm looking at is the body areas. Right at this point, I don't have hardly any white showing anymore. Got little bits of white here and there, but almost all of it's either brown or tan. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my extreme light green. I'm going to give it just a little whiff right here on the side, just to give it a little difference from one side to the other. Okay? If I see anything that I don't like how it came out, I will adjust it. Like right up in here, that's kind of blah. but that's okay. All I need to do, I'll show you how that's working. Let me spin it around so you can really see. This is kind of blocked, right? You take one of your patterns and you put something else over it, like this. Put a little touch brown in there. This is what I meant by working from light to dark. The brown is pretty much the darkest color. So it's going to be the last thing I want to do. You don't want to keep repeating the same shape over and over. Okay? Let's see how I've got these little... I'll walk the camera around it in a minute and show you. But the areas where I put the green, make a great area to lay down a little brown right on top of that green. Use different shapes over and over. This area right here is kind of white. Let me do something different here. This big piece so I don't get everything everywhere. Alright, see, I just want to cover this corner up and go that. Maybe one big blob right in the center, and maybe a couple stripes up in the center. Big long stripe. A lot of this is really, you got to just let your eye do the work for you. Okay? Now, where are we at? Let's take a look. I would say that's considerably different looking than when I started with a pure white shell. By the time I hydro dip this, it'll really look amazing. And I'm not going to peel any of the masking or anything until I'm 100% done. I'm talking about with the clear coat and everything. So the masking stays on during the whole process until the very last, when I lay my last bit of hot clear on. You see this really green part right here? It may not look that obvious from this angle, but if you look at it from this angle, it looks really obvious, right? This is when a little zigzag, okay, a little zigzag, when I approach it from a different angle, a little zigzag right around here would probably look really good. Okay, a little zip I put on there, okay, and there's a little bit right here I'd kind of like to do something with, put another kind of a zigzag right up in here. Okay, put a couple stripes on it. And what you got is you got blur with crisp. Blur with crisp. I'll use a different color green in here. I'll use my deep forest green, and I'm going to put a zigzag of green right up in here. Okay. So you go with a blur and a crisp, and blur and crisp. And depending on how far away you're holding your stencil is what you're going to get. See this little kind of S shape right there? It's very subtle. And then right in here, it's all just kind of creamy color. And I put some bright green right on there. And use this kind of lightning bolt type of jag here. Okay. Right in there. And it really starts to come alive when you put the lights over the darks at the end. But you don't want to put a lot of light. You want to put little, like light coming through the trees kind of light. You don't want to put giant blobs of light over top of giant blobs of dark. It's not going to look right. Almost out of this green here. Okay. Now, let's have another quick go around, just have a quick look at it. Okay. Now, even if this wasn't getting Hydrodip, at this point, this is a pretty reasonable camo pattern, just as it is. Little breaks it up. It's those little patterns. Now here, this is all really kind of blurry. That might need just something sharp right in there, like right in there. Okay. But this, I like this. It's got that little bit of sharp right there, but it's blurry. And what it does is it looks like it's in focus and out of focus. And what it does is it makes your eye work harder to see it. You can see I got little bits of green, brown, gray, and then the whole thing kind of gets a tan color because of the way it mixes. Now, there's a time where you have to stop. You must stop. You must stop fiddling with it, because if you keep going too long, you're going to, I just stepped on my power plug and unplugged the fan, which is okay because now you can hear me better. But if you work at it too many times, if you just keep going and going, you're going to ruin it. You've got to stop at some point. Okay. Now, even though this is really blah right on the bumper, there's going to be all these little patterns from the Hydrodip all over it. Okay, so I'm not too worried about that. Got a nice variegation, and as you move back from it, you'll see that it's getting difficult to see it against the table in some ways. The shape of the bus, you don't see the sharp contours of it until you see like something like the white background of this. Now you can see the sharp contours. But in a natural background where there's a lot of different colors, it really starts to get weirded out. I stepped on my power plug and started my fan again. Isn't that handy? Alright. At this point, I'm pretty happy. This might be the only place I might want to put something, but I think I'm just going to leave it alone because I like it. I kind of like it. I like this shape to it. Okay. Now, if you wanted to go truly nuts, you could paint your rims, you could paint your tires, everything. You could go crazy on it, but we're not going to do that. Okay. But each one of these things is going to be a unique work of art. It's just what it is, and it's yours. When you've done this, it's your pattern, it's your style, it's what suits you. And this, to me, is pretty good. So when you're looking at it from above, you're looking at it from the side, you consider this thing's going to be on the ground, crawling along. You kind of want it just to look like nothing mixed in with all the grass and dirt and leaves and whatnot. Okay. This may look very light to you, but once the M2D goes over it, it's going to add a whole lot of other things. Because the M2D has black and white and brown and green and yellow and all kinds of colors in it in a random pattern. And you'll see that, probably do that Sunday or Monday. Because I want to let this paint completely dry before I knock it off with the, before I put it in with the Hydrodip. There you have it. Custom camo paint on a Parma school bus shell. Who'd have thunk it, right? I think that's pretty cool. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for supporting Mountain Storm. This is a one-of-a-kind project that will never be repeated. I'll never be doing another RC show like this for anyone, except maybe my friends or family. I'm certainly not going to be doing it as a job. This is just something I really want to do because my client's a really nice guy, and he had a real interesting idea. He says, can you clone your RC? I really like it. I like what you've done with it. I really appreciate everything you've done, and I know that you'll do a good job. And he's trusted me all along to do this job for him. And I really appreciate his trust and his confidence in my abilities. And that's what keeps pushing me forward, you know. Appreciation for your work is what drives a craftsman, drives an artist to try and do new and different and better things. Okay. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like this sort of thing, you should subscribe to my channel, Mountain Storm, on YouTube. You can check out my work on rccrawlerforums.com, where I have a build thread on this vehicle. You can see every step of the way that I've gone to make this this Redcat RS10 into something very capable and very unique.